Welcome back to the Legal Vixen podcast. Today I have a very special guest, somebody who used to be on the other side when I was a public defender. He was an investigator with the DA's office for years, Damon Tucker. Hi, Damon.
Hello.
I'm so excited to have you on.
This is going to be really cool, yes.
I received your 4-page resume and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know all that about you. But I'm going to let you briefly describe your background for our viewers.
Okay. I was a police detective or police officer for probably over 34 years. I worked for 5 different agencies. I began my career with the Department of Treasury, working for U.S. Customs at LAX as a customs inspectional clerk, and at the Tom Bradley wing of the airport. And then I went to the Department of Defense as a federal police officer, patrolling the Long Beach Naval Shipyard and Terminal Island on federal property and enforcing federal law. And then my first state assignment was with the Los Angeles School Police Department, and I worked in East LA, South Central LA, working in some of the more violent schools. And then in 1996, I got bored of working on the inner city, and I went to the Irvine Police Department.
Oh, wow.
And that was
a huge difference.
It was quite a bit. They had to sort of defang me when I left LA to go to Irvine. And I went to Irvine, did 2 years of patrol there, and then I went to detectives. And when I went to detectives, that's when the internet kind of took off. That's when that whole eBay was created. And I started figuring out how to arrest people on cybercrimes, eBay crimes. And all of a sudden, I was one of the first ones to do it. I became the cyber guy by default. And I left the DA's, Irvine PD in 2003, and I went to the district attorney's office, and I worked there as an investigator in a bunch of different units until 2014 when I was promoted to supervising investigator. And the units that I worked as an investigator at the DA, I worked felony panel, which is general crimes. I worked major fraud. I worked sexually violent predators and sexual assault, 2 different types of crimes. I worked insurance fraud, and when I got promoted, I supervised the insurance fraud unit. Then I supervised the major fraud unit, which includes major fraud, real estate fraud, cybercrime. And then I had the collateral assignment for about 10 years as the internal affairs guy. So I would investigate sworn personnel like police officers for misconduct, attorneys, non-sworn, management, those types of people in the office if they violated policy or county issues. And then I finished my career working for Branch Court Services, which is supervising the investigators doing mostly misdemeanor investigations at the outer courts, and the tech services unit and the graphics unit, which produce exhibits for trial purposes.
Oh, okay.
And
but you're also teaching, right?
I hate to overinflate my resume. I can't say professor because I don't think I really was a professor.
Adjunct, isn't it?
An adjunct, yes.
Yeah.
Adjunct instructor. And I taught at the Criminal Justice Department at Long Beach State, which is where I got both my degrees. And I taught upper division and graduate courses in criminal investigation and white-collar crime. And I also developed certificate programs in question documents and computer-based fraud. And I also taught a certificate program in internet crime, which covered credit card fraud, identity theft, and child pornography. And I sat on thesis committees and things like that.
Oh, wow. How long did you do that?
Long Beach, I taught there for about 13 years as an adjunct, but I was teaching there either as a guest lecturer or as a developer of certificate programs probably 10 years prior to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you know that I like to do fraud cases,
yes,
right?
Yes, you do.
And I think, well, you've known my husband for years, but
yes.
I don't know if I met you until I was in the public defender's office.
I might have met you when you were still dating your future husband when he was a firefighter and I was a policeman.
Yeah.
And because I used to go to his fire station to use the restroom when I was in uniform. Because you never want to be a policeman and go to the restroom and take your gun belt off and leave it in a public bathroom.
Oh,
so it's better to leave it in the firefighter's bathroom because they'll at least call you and tell you, hey, you forgot your gun.
That's so funny.
And but I remember when he started dating you, and then he and I have been in touch over the years. And and I've known you. And then at the DA's office, as a supervisor, as an investigator in the fraud unit, everybody is.
People didn't like me in your office.
Didn't say that. They all know. They all know who you are. Everybody knows who you are, and they expect that you're going to be a very persistent and very you defend your clients to the best of your abilities, and you are not somebody that's just going to go over there and bend over and not put up a fight. You put up a fight, and all my guys are trained. They know who you are.
Oh, that's
we
so
know who
funny.
all the defense attorneys are.
That's so
and
funny. Didn't I cross-examine you one time?
You did. And even though we're friends, if I recall, there was really not much you could get out of me, but the things you could poke holes in, you tried to, and you tried to take a few swings at me on, not literally, but on the stand. You weren't nice like we are right now.
No violence in the courtroom.
No violence. But you were aggressive, defending your client against whatever I had done on the case. I think I might have been a supervisor, and I might have interviewed somebody affiliated with the case, but and I don't even remember which case that was or if it got bound over or not. But
I'm sure it got bound over.
Yeah, but you do your job, and I've had a few of my guys that have had to go up on the stand against you, and they've come back to my office and
were they crying?
They weren't happy. That's all I can say. It wasn't a fun experience for them to be on the stand.
I think those were those trial situations or
no. I remember I watched one and. And I watched, and I had to, if it was a referee, I would have, say, hey, we need to take a timeout, do a count to 10, and explain they need to reset and all that. But you're very aggressive when it comes to engaging my former investigators.
It's so fun.
It's all right. No, it's your job. It's okay.
It's so much fun.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm going to specifically talk about fraud, obviously, because that's where my expertise lies. Can you explain what the most common types of fraud cases that you've investigated?
Well, as a supervisor, I've investigated every type myself individually, and but at the DA's office where I spent most of my career as a supervisor, we deal with anything mostly financial related. It's got to be financial, but it's grand theft or variations of grand theft, false pretense theft, things like that, embezzlement, which are all again under the umbrella of theft. We do securities fraud. That's a common thing that we do over there, offering securities or failing to tell a client the adverse aspects of their investment opportunity.
Or the omissions?
The omissions, yes. It's been a while since I've been in that realm. We have the cybercrime stuff, which is the 502 stuff, using computers to devise an artifice to extort or steal money. The cyber stuff is probably the main thing, but the reality is cyber is really difficult for any local agency to investigate because it crosses county, city, state, even federal lines. And so how do you go and arrest a guy in another state or another country? So we have those cases, but we do more triage on that than we do anything. I had a list of some of these on here. I think I got most of them, but and the other thing we do quite a bit is we have some false recordings. We deal with a lot of sovereign citizens because we have a grant of money that deals with the county recorder's office.
Wait, sovereign citizens, can you explain that a little bit? Because I've always thought that was so interesting. I've had a sovereign citizen client as a public defender.
Sovereign citizens don't really, I think they believe in common law or some sort of archaic law system. They misinterpret laws. They try to use commercial codes and maritime law. They use all sorts of weird, explanations of how the law should work, and it doesn't comport with the system that you and I abide by, which is the state laws and all that. And they have trouble with the supremacy clause, federal government, state government, all that stuff. It's really nonsensical. It's kind of an internet sort of thing, and I don't understand. They play games with their names. They copyright their names.
That's what my client did.
Yes.
He would state his name. We were in front of, I can't remember the judge's name. It wasn't Robeson. I can't remember his name. Anyways, my client refused. When you get arraigned, what's your name?
Right.
He wouldn't say his name.
Yep.
He's like, I'm a man.
I'm a living man. Yes, a living man, and they'll capitalize their name, and they'll trademark it. Yeah.
And I wasn't ready for that because it was just, I was a public defender, and I'm like, oh no, this is not going to go well.
Yes.
And the judge took him into custody because he wouldn't say his name, held him in contempt.
Right, because technically he's not making his appearance, so The sovereign citizens, they usually mess around with the real estate stuff. They'll file lis pendens on properties to cloud a title. They'll do all sorts of loan scam type stuff, bog down a property, squatter type behavior. And so the real estate unit deals with a lot of the sovereign citizens. And then the other aspect of the fraud unit that most people don't realize that we do is we do due diligence on warrants. There are fraud suspects that we filed on sometimes back in the 90s that fled. They went to Canada or they went to some other country, and the case is frozen in time. So we have to, every few months, at least make an attempt to locate them. So if they are eventually located, they can't claim speedy trial violation. So we have to document our efforts to locate them, checking social media, whatever it might be, checking red notices or going between countries, passports, State Department, all that. And eventually we'll pick up people that have been on the run for 20 years on a fraud case. And then once we do pick them up, we have to also freshen up the case enough to win or get it through a prelim or through a trial, if depending on what stage they vacated the case. So I'd say about 20% of the caseloads of the fraud investigators is due diligence. And we're chasing ghosts most of the time. Because a lot of times the warrants are even issued for people that's not even their true name. And when we catch them, we still have to prove identity and all that.
When you were an investigator, what were your favorite types of fraud cases to investigate? What were the most interesting to you?
Well, I think anytime I got to interview a suspect was always something that was interesting.
Yeah, they're not following an attorney's advice. Like, everybody should know. Like,
yes.
It's all over the place on TV. Like, do not talk, and they still do.
Don't talk to us. There's nothing going to be gained out of talking to us.
Exactly.
The talking to them was one of the ways I got ahead in life, and as far as a fraud guy. And when I worked at Irvine, I was able to figure out a way of talking to people without making them invoke and want to speak to their attorneys. And in doing so, I took a genuine interest in what they had done and how they had done it. And if they realized that they were checkmated and they were done, there was no benefit of lying to me or irritating me. They tended to want to make me happy, I guess. And I would ask questions like, how did you commit the crime? What was your thought process? When you broke the window of this building, why did you choose this building over that building? And they explained it all to me. So when I go out and I investigate crime, I know what I know and how to do it because I was taught not by cops, but by the defendants themselves. Identity thieves during proffer sessions with defense attorneys and their clients. I've learned how fake IDs are made. I know how to wash checks. I know how to do all that stuff.
Wow, you could be a really good white-collar criminal.
Yes. And so that part, and that could involve anybody doing anything. Identity thieves, credit card fraud, people that burglarize buildings, how they choose their targets.
People that steal mail.
Steal mail, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, how they put themselves.
That's coming back.
Stealing mail is a big one. The big thing they do on all of that mail theft stuff is you don't want to stand out when you go into a neighborhood. So what they'll typically do is they'll arm themselves with some kind of dubious flyer, like for house cleaning or dog sitting or whatever, and they'll use that to go door to door to put flyers in the mailbox, which gives them a reason to be at the mailbox reaching in. They may knock on a door, and if there's nobody answering, then they'll have their cohorts go around the back and break through the sliding glass door. So there's all sorts of ways people do things to test the fences, so to speak, of the crimes they're going to commit without trying to minimize their ability to get caught.
I have a case right now. It's a federal case. And the main fraudster actually rented an apartment in a huge complex, and then they would steal the mail.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty.
I had one guy years ago, and it was all the news when I did it, and it took me forever to catch the guy, but he would go to apartment complexes and pose as a prospective potential tenant. And they would go and take him and let him view the floor plans of the of the actual units and walk through. But those floor plans are floor plans for purposes of display only. Nobody lives in them, but they are actual living units.
Interesting.
So he would see the address, know which ones were the vacant ones where nobody lived. Then he would go over and he bought a whole bunch of U.S. postal mailbox cylinders and would rekey the box with all the mailboxes, and then have mail sent to that location. Because nobody lived in that actual place, but there's actually a mailbox for it.
That's genius.
And he would go by, and he had several apartments throughout Orange County, and he had the key. He would go around, he'd pick up his credit cards and everything he would get under fake identities. And he never actually lived in those places, but those places were legitimate locations. He just maximized his margins. He was able to figure out a way of setting up shop without leaving any trail behind him.
Wait, you didn't catch him?
I caught him.
Oh, you did? How did you catch him?
Once I figured out who he was, took a while to figure all that out. Sometimes what happens is they slip up. They always accidentally, I think he accidentally sent a piece of mail to that address that was under his real name.
Oh, interesting.
So out of all the people that got mail there, they were all fake names or victims' names. And then all of a sudden one comes in, and then I run the guy, and then you find out he's got a prior where he's escalating his activities. He's evolving as a criminal. Once you get caught once, you figure out how not to get caught again, so you change your methods. And so he was doing that, and I was able to identify him, I think, on a piece of mail. Then I was able to get him identified by some of the postal delivery people. They would see him waiting around the boxes. Once I got a photo, then I tracked him down his legitimate P.O. box and pulled the U.S. postal form. I think it's a 1583 form. Saw his true identity.
Wait, he got a post office box from a U.S. post office?
No, he got one of those mailbox, mailbox, et cetera things. I tracked that down. And then from there, I was able to get search warrants to go through his mail, figure out where he's paying his bills, his true utilities. And then I was able to figure out a lot. And then we were eventually able to get a warrant system. He got picked up on a warrant.
Oh, wow.
On a vehicle stop.
Was he still in Orange County?
He got picked up in Riverside County. And he was doing some sort of crime out there that was suspicious. They pulled him over, ran him, and he had a fake ID on him under a different name. But when they brought him in and fingerprinted him, the bells and whistles went off for the warrant that I had issued for him.
Interesting.
Yes.
So back when you were in the DA's office, how did it work? Did you guys get submissions from, law enforcement agencies around the county, and then you would get assigned a specific fraud investigation? Is that how?
Well, as an investigator, I don't know how my bosses were doing that. I know that when I took over, I was in charge of triaging incoming cases and assigning them to my respective investigators. And so when a case came in, they came in into a litany of different ways. It would be citizen complaint. There's a portal on the DA's website if you want to file a real estate complaint. I think there might be one on there for filing a major fraud complaint. I'm not sure. Or you could mail a packet into the DA's office, and then we would read it. And usually the head of the fraud unit, my counterpart at the time was Leslie Young, who's now one of the higher managers. She would read it. This might have some merit. I look at it. I look at it if it has investigative merit. If we do, then we figure out statute of limitations, the ability maybe to win this case or put a case together, if it's a waste of resources or not.
Did the amount of money matter?
Sometimes it did. So there are two factors in the money thing. If you're coming to the DA's office, and when I worked there, it was north of 100,000, probably closer to $1 million, that would pique our interest, because otherwise the regular police do the regular cases. But if you had a case where maybe the losses weren't a lot, it could be the aggregate of all these victims. A bunch of victims lost $100 a piece, but it's a crime wave affecting hundreds of people. So volume of victims versus the actual outcome and the total amount. So the victims would report to us. Police departments would come to us. Hey, we got this case. It's beyond our skill set. It's exotic. Something's unusual about it. We don't know how to do this. We would take the referrals from the local police departments. We would get some cases I had came as a result of investigative reporters.
Really?
Yeah, I had one case where I arrested a congressional candidate that a reporter from the Register years ago.
Who was it?
Martin Wiskel.
Okay.
He was a reporter for the Register, and he did a big expose on a woman named Delisha Holt. It's already in the news. And she was running for Congress she ran for Christopher Cox's old position. And then she ran for the 53rd Congressional District in San Diego for a guy named Randall Duke Cunningham, who ended up going to prison himself for fraud. And he what's weird about him was he was conservative, and he advocated for stronger prison sentences, and then he went to prison for bribery.
Under a stronger prison sentence?
Yes, and he got a stronger prison sentence.
That's so funny.
She was doing all this kind of fraud and kind of questionable stuff, and Martin Wiskel was investigating candidates for office, and this big expose came out in the Register. People started calling the DA's office, hey, are you guys looking into this candidate? And I got assigned it, and I arrested her, I think, 2 or 3 times.
2 or 3 times?
Yeah, because she got out, and then she would go back and do it again.
You're kidding.
Yeah, she was absolutely... You could not rehabilitate her conduct. She was just a con woman.
Gosh.
And she wrote a book while she's in prison on one of her stints, and there's a chapter in there where she talks about how evil I am because I caught her.
Did she name you in it?
She doesn't name me, but she describes the investigator that had no sympathy for her and was mean about this and about that. And
that's so funny.
And so we get the media thing. Then we sometimes get, I had a couple here, we had media. We have hotlines throughout the county or just a call that comes in. Police department, citizen complaints. The ones that shouldn't be happening are the ones that are based on political influence. The ones where a case is assigned to me because somebody knows somebody in politics. And that's not right, that anybody in politics, if they're a victim or they're a friend of a victim, has the right to go to the front of the line over a regular tax-paying citizen.
Oh, because they're a donator?
Something to that effect, yes. And I've alleged things like that in some moving papers in the past couple of years. And that tends to be the ones that we sometimes get in there. And I will say 99% of the time, those are dubious in nature. It's a waste of resources. They don't produce fruit. I have had some that did come in through political avenues, but they were legit. But that was years and years ago. Very rare would they come in because there shouldn't be any political influence on the use of police resources.
You know what it's always bothered me is the DA's office is the DA's elected.
Correct. Yes.
The public defenders, that's an appointed position through the county.
Right.
I don't know. Whenever you have somebody who's elected, there's always room for.
Well, there's no quality control because the DA is only hammer that anybody has over the DA's conduct is the people that provide for the budget, which is the Board of Supervisors, who sometimes might be in my crosshairs for dubious or possible criminal conduct. And we had a former Board of Supervisor who's currently serving some prison time. And so you have a lot of these people in politics are doing shady things. I've investigated a lot of politicians in my career. I arrested that congressional candidate. I arrested and investigated Carlos Bustamante, who was a former Santa Ana city councilman.
Oh, I remember that.
I arrested Carlos. And, politics seems to have a statistical outlier of people that are prone to commit crimes.
Yeah. Did you do the investigation on him?
I did, and I arrested him as he was entering council chambers at Santa Ana.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Before a meeting?
Right before a meeting. We hid in the garage underneath the city of Santa Ana where the politicians park, and we hid down in there. And then when he came in, part of the reason we did that was as much as I'm a policeman and I don't like bad conduct, I don't want to embarrass you too much if I don't have to, and we didn't want to have to pull him over and have the kids in the car and all that.
Oh, yeah.
We knew where he was going to be, something we could control. He's down there. Once you go in that gate, it shuts behind you, so he's trapped in there with us anyway. And we were able to get him then. So the political stuff is pretty bad, but the public defender is appointed, and they're appointed by, I believe, the Board of Supervisors, which, again, they have all the reasons and motives to do things, what a reason they choose to do things. And the DA's only sort of hammer over their conduct is their budgets. But if you don't give the DA's office the budgets and the crime rates rise, the DA could argue, well, I can't fight crime without the money and blame it on the Board of Supervisors. So there's this constant political nature of things. And then all of a sudden a friend of one of these people becomes a victim of a crime. And local law enforcement's not doing their job. So they skip the line and they try to come to me to help fix it. And I won't do that. They need to go through and play fair like everybody else. Nobody gets an upper hand because they donate or friends with somebody that's in a political position.
Okay, I have to ask you this.
Yes.
What is the craziest arrest you've ever had to do?
Craziest arrest? Well, there's...
Or memorable, whatever, like funny, dangerous.
Well, there was so many. So there's Delisha Holt, the congressional candidate. She came to the office months before I arrested her. Because at that point, I was just investigating her. I needed to find out if I was wasting my time or not, which is one of the ruses I use.
Wait, she voluntarily came
She voluntarily came down.
Oh, boy. Without a lawyer?
Without a lawyer. Came down, not in custody, not being interrogated, no Miranda's required, and I interviewed her for about 8 hours.
8 hours?
And we couldn't get her to agree to the color of the wall. It was insane how she answered questions. But at the end, as I'm walking her out to her car, she tries to, what we call Eddie Haskell me, which is the character on Leave It to Beaver, insincerity. And she's like, you know what, I appreciate your skepticism of my conduct. You're really good at what you do. In fact, when I get elected, I'm going to need a guy like you on my staff. And she thinks she's conned me. But what I got out of that was I got her locked into statements that I can refute. You don't have to admit you committed the crime. All I need you to just tell me enough lies, and I can prove the lies, which is just as good sometimes. So she walked out. She got into, I think it was a Mercedes-Benz. So I take all that into consideration, and then a few months later, I get everything done. Bank records are done. I analyze everything. I'm ready to arrest her, get a warrant or 836-er, probable cause to arrest. And I call her again, say, hey, I want to follow up on our conversation we had 6 months ago. Can you come down and talk to me again? And when I do this, I don't say come down on Monday at 9 in the morning. I say whenever you have time. Whatever day is good for you. You tell me what your time is. I'm around. I go to lunch at this time, it should be really quick. Come on down. She's like, well, I can't come tomorrow the next day, but are you free Wednesday? I'm like, let me check my calendar. Yeah, I'm available Wednesday.
Okay.
So she comes down, and she's driving this Mercedes again. And I had found out in the interim that Mercedes was stolen from Fletcher Jones through fraud.
Oh, my gosh.
And so I had the tow truck waiting around the corner. So as soon as she went in the building, the tow truck came and got their car back. And she came upstairs on our floor, and we're in a law office, and I arrest her. And so we put her in handcuffs, and we put her on the elevator, take her down, and the doorbell, the elevator rings, and it's the DA at the time, and it's Rikakis, and he sees I've got this girl in custody, and he's like, what did Damon get himself into? And so we take her to jail. So I arrested Delisha a couple times. And then I had another guy that I arrested 2 or 3 times in the course of like 2 or 3 days.
Oh, wow.
He kept going to jail for fraud, nonviolent crime, got out, would do more, get out, same thing. And then he eventually stole my identity years later.
No.
And I had to testify at his trial that he was not me. And they have an appellate decision based on this because he appealed his verdict against him, saying that the first time he met me, and I introduced myself as Investigator Damon Tucker, that I gave him my identity and he therefore used it. And that was his appellate basis.
Stop.
And it got rejected, yes.
An appellate lawyer filed that, or was he pro per on his appeal?
I think he was pro per at trial. LaBreche was the DA on it.
That's funny.
And I think Connolly was the judge.
Judge
Connolly. And he stole my identity, and he got caught for doing it because when he would go out and be me when he'd stalk one of his ex-girlfriends. And
Did he look anything like you?
He's African-American.
Oh, jeez.
And what happened was he went to the employer of a girl he had a kid with, and he wanted to find out where she had lived, and she had like a restraining order against him or something.
Scary.
So he calls the business. Instead of saying, hey, I'm so-and-so's ex-boyfriend and there's a restraining order against me, he calls and says, I'm Investigator Damon Tucker from the Irvine Police Department.
Oh, that's funny.
But I'd already been to the DA's office, and he hadn't seen me in like 5 or 6 years and assumed I was still with Irvine PD.
Oh, okay.
So the business got keen to this, and that seemed odd that an Irvine cop was calling in, so they called Irvine PD looking for me. And they called the Investigative Bureau, and they said, he doesn't work here anymore. He works in another agency. So Irvine PD calls me and says, are you working a case and identifying yourself as an Irvine cop? And I'm like, no. And they said, we didn't think so. So they set up a sting, and they caught him.
Oh, wow.
And then we had one, and we talked about it briefly. I arrested a gentleman for elder abuse, investment fraud, securities fraud, and I arrested him at his daughter's high school graduation ceremony.
Man, at least he got to see her graduate, though,
He did get to see her graduate, yes. But that I knew where he was going to be. He deserved to go to jail for what he'd done, and he went to prison for, I think, 12 years after that one.
Wow. How much did the woman that was running for Congress
steal?
How much time did she end up doing? Do you know?
She did a couple years in state prison, got out, violated probation or parole, got put in, and then violated probation or parole again. A couple years here and there total. I'm not real sure because, again, it's nonviolent, it's economic.
Yeah.
They're not getting a lot of crime, not a lot of time.
Doing 50% of your sentence.
Probably less than that. And then you have, hers wasn't some, multi-million-dollar fraud. It was variations of fraud. She had like $30,000 of unpaid tolls on the toll road. She had...
Stop.
I'm telling you, this is crazy stuff. You can't make this up. She had, she would go to the theaters like in South Orange County where she was running for office, and she would have them put up her picture on the screen before the movies.
Trailers?
Like the advertisements,
yeah.
Go to Pinkberry, and while you're here, the next slide comes up, vote for Delisha Holt for Congress. And she wouldn't pay them, but they would run the ads, and so they were stiffed out of that. There was a business where she embedded herself into this business and eventually started stealing from the business, their clients or their money, one of those types of things. And she was just permeated with fraud, and everything she kind of did was fraudulent. And you sit her here today, and she's going to tell you that everything she did was above the board. She did nothing wrong. She has no...
But she pled guilty?
I don't think she pled guilty. I think she was convicted at jury trial.
She went to trial.
And then the violations were probably done administratively. And I mean, they are what they are. So, yeah.
The one thing that I love doing trials. Like that's my dream job, is just to do trials. I do civil trials now for a firm that I work for, and then obviously the criminal trials. But the hardest thing to do criminally on a criminal trial is dealing with a fraud case, because the jurors hate fraud. And you go through so many jurors when you're doing jury questioning because
Right.
like everyone's been victimized at some point, like identity theft or whatever. Those are the hardest ones.
It is. It affects you negatively, but it also affects the prosecution negatively because we have to be able to tell a story so simple that 12 licensed drivers who weren't smart enough to get out of jury duty couldn't get out of jury duty are there. And typically people that can do a lone cause fraud case, which takes weeks or months to do, are people that are unemployed, students, and retirees.
Or work for the county.
Or work for the county, yeah. You're not going to get a doctor, a lawyer, or an accountant in there necessarily because they're needed somewhere and they can't afford to be there. So you end up getting people that might not be academically at the level to understand what we're talking about. Then you have to simplify it. And that allows, on our side, if we simplify it, it allows your side to put red herrings in there and make it something.
Red herrings?
Sorry.
What?
Reasonable doubt.
No one's ever used that slide against me. Just kidding.
Sorry, yes.
The red herring slide.
It's look over here stuff. And it's like, no, it's over here. But she's telling you to look over here. Don't do that. And so if you can get them to buy into something like that, that gets you reasonable doubt and that gets you your acquittals or your dismissals or a reduction in charges. And trials and fraud are rare in the grand scheme of things. But when they do happen, they are time consuming and you lose the jurors. And nobody wants to be there listening to a forensic accountant going through bank records and pie charts and graphs and all that.
Yeah, I think right before I left the public defender's office, the DA's office, I think had 3 on-staff forensic accounting people.
I think they might have 4 or 5 now. I know they have quite a bit. And I think that once we take your case or it gets filed and you're a local agency, it's not generated by my investigators, we will then take over the forensic accounting component of it. And then obviously if we do it in-house, we have that ability as well. And luckily with AI and with scanning and things like that, we used to manually have to go and zero out accounts and manually type in spreadsheets and do all the calculations that way. But now we can scan PDFs and reams of paper and print up the data, and then you just have to go and quality control it and check it to make sure the entries are accurate. And
Which AI program is used?
I'm not sure what it is. I know that since I've left, there's an AI program because I did a webinar where I was speaking on fraud stuff, and they were trying to sell some sort of AI product, and I saw how it worked, and I'm like, it can go through and look at the documents and do all that stuff, yeah.
Wow, that would speed up the process, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
The U.S. attorneys needs to use that because they take forever.
Well, that's what fraud, it takes forever
Investigating
just because of that.
stuff. Yeah. Here's the one thing that I always tell, when I get a call, because I specialize in fraud cases, if somebody's accused of any type of fraud, one of the first questions I ask is, did you say anything?
Right.
So most of the times they have, and then it's like, okay, what did you say? And of course, they don't necessarily tell you everything that they've said.
They do not.
But the people that don't talk are like my favorite cases to have because it's so much harder for fraud because it's based on paper. And I tell people this, I go, it's one thing to see it on paper.
Right.
But if whoever's doing the investigation can't fill in the gaps of what's going on, their case is harder to prove. And a lot of people get it after I explain it, but so many people feel compelled to talk. Well, I wasn't doing anything wrong. I just, felt like I had to give my side of the story.
Right.
What are the investigative tactics that investigators use to try to get people to talk? And the reason I'm asking is because the FBI is notorious for doing this. They'll tell the person, they'll say, do I need a lawyer? Oh, you don't need a lawyer yet. Like, you're not under, but the way they say it is just so wrong when people are honestly don't know what to do.
Right.
So what kind of investigative tactics?
Well, the first thing is if your client says nothing, he's helped the investigator but kind of hurt our case. And what I mean by that is this. If I have lots of emails and transactions and records and things like that, and he doesn't authenticate it, or he doesn't claim dominion and control, the defense is going to be somebody else did it. Some other guy went in and logged onto my computer. Somebody framed me. If I get him to say at least that's his stuff and he's the one that did it, then that gets rid of that argument, takes that away from you. The good part for the investigator is if your client doesn't talk to us, then there's not much to write. Because then we attempted to interview suspect, Jim Smith or whatever, and he said pound sand. There's nothing there. Now, we're never going to hear his side of the story, but we're going to have to now prove circumstantially in trial, which is going to take a lot more effort, instead of saying, like when I get people with fake IDs, like that do identity theft, I like to show them the fake ID with their picture on it, with somebody else's name on it, and then I go, who's that in the photo? And they go, that's me. But that's not your name. And they've authenticated it's a counterfeit. Right. They've automatically done it. I don't have to get a DMV representative.
Yeah.
They already said that's them. They're not claiming it's a guy that looks like them. That's me. I took that photo.
That's so funny.
And so that part of it is important. Now, I did watch the podcast you had with one of the Pop brothers.
Yes.
Yeah, I loved it. I watched the whole thing. The guy was a good
Wasserman.
guy. I've seen that. What's this guy's name?
Mark Wasserman. I've known him since like junior high.
I saw something, yeah.
Yeah.
So I saw him, and I saw him one day. He was walking out of Westcourt, and I think he had like a necklace on. He had like a bud, like a marijuana bud. And it wasn't real. It was like a ceramic one or something. But I've watched his videos. I think he's awesome.
He's hilarious.
And I met his brother, and I saw you can say the words on your show. He has the thing where it's like, shut the fuck up Thursday or Friday or something, where when you get pulled over, officer, what do you do? I'm not answering questions. How's my day or whatever? I mean, he has a whole thing, and he's actually correct. And I like the guy because at the end of the day, just like you, if your client's good for it, you're going to try to get them the best deals possible. You're not going to, if they did it and the cops did their job right, you can't promise them they're not going to go to jail. They're not going to be punished.
Right. And
he was real good about saying, I'm not encouraging anybody to go out and smoke or drink and do DUIs and things like that. If you did it, and you blew a .2 and the cops did everything by procedure, as a defense attorney, the best I can do for you is try to get you the best deal possible. Mm-hmm. I can't undo what you did. And we're not recommending or suggesting that you go out and do those things. So that's a bad thing to do. It's unsafe.
Yeah.
So not talking to me is easy for me because I have to write it up, but it's harder on the back end in trial to explain dominion and control. Mm-hmm. How do I get people to talk to me? I like to play dumb. I don't understand. I'm originally from a southern state to where I sometimes talk with an accent.
And what state?
I'm from southern Illinois, but I lived in Texas. My family's from the Tennessee area mostly. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is people out here think that if you have a southern accent, you're not that smart. And so I had a stronger one years ago. I've kind of lost it completely. But if you act like you don't know about computers, and you don't know about this or that, or finances, or how a bank account works, or whatever, or an LLC or something, they tend to think, I'm going to educate this guy, and I'm going to educate him to defend my position. So they might talk that way. If you're not in custody and you're not being interrogated, I'm not going to address any of that stuff. I'm not an attorney. I'm not going to give you legal advice. Mm-hmm. Sometimes I might come to you and say, hey, we got a referral from a citizen complaining about you. We hate wasting time and resources. This could be a big nothing. I think it is at this point. But I got to close this thing out. Can you let me know what you think about this? And you present it to them in a non-threatening manner. And again, like with Delisha Holt, hey, come down at your leisure. Not demanding you come down tomorrow morning at 3 o'clock mm-hmm. or I'm going to come get you. You do it at their leisure. You make it look like there's no urgency to anything. You don't come off as offensive or scary. You don't threaten people. You don't have to do that. And I don't expect you to confess to anything. I just want you to lie to me.
The one thing that has always bothered me is that law enforcement can lie.
They can. We can use ruses, yes.
I hate the fact that that's legal.
It is legal. I was at a thing over the weekend, and they heard people talking, and they were talking about, well, they have to tell you if they're a cop. If you do blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, they don't. If they offer you drugs or it's prostitution, whatever, they don't. If you ask them if they're a cop and they say they're not, there's no violation of that. And there's no entrapment in that. And so we can use ruse. You can use that against me and play it in front of a jury that, the cops are liars, like you lied to my client. You could do that.
Is he lying to you now?
Yes, you can try that, but it's not the same thing. But a ruse is a technique that we do use. If you do use a ruse, like you say, hey, I know you just told me you weren't there, but I've got this fisheye camera from this ATM machine that shows you standing right by it, and you don't, and he knows he wasn't there, you lost all credibility with the defendant. But if he was there and he thinks you got video of him, he may change his story. So if you are going to use a ruse, you got to bluff, knowing that you're going to make the ruse work for you, or that you've got something to back it up. If you go in there and you start claiming their DNA's there and they know they weren't there, but they might have been involved in some other aspect of the crime, you lose all credibility, and that doesn't work. So using a ruse could backfire you as a cop. So you use it when you have to, but don't typically have to. Yeah. So
I can't tell you how many times I've had clients say, well, they said they had my DNA. And I'm like, you believed them?
Yeah. Yep.
How many hours passed? I'm like, they can't do the test that fast.
Yep.
Oh, man. I'm like, yeah, they can lie to you. It's allowed.
When I was in the academy, we had to go through, we used to do our own, before CSI was around, we used to have to do our own fingerprints and lift them off objects and stuff to show, because we did our own CSI as patrolmen.
Oh, wow.
And I remember I had this little fingerprint card. It was my fingerprint. I pulled it off with a powder and on my latent print. I put it on a card, and I carry it around with me all the time. And
You
then
do?
I used to carry it around with me, and I used to use it sometimes to go, look, I got your print, and I would throw it out.
And it was yours?
My print the whole time. But the guilty conscience would sometimes make them admit, because they knew they were there and they weren't wearing gloves. Now, again, if I used that ruse and they were wearing gloves,
Yeah.
they would know I was full of shit.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful when you do stuff like that, and that's kind of the way it works. Yeah.
That's so funny. Do you miss any part of like being an actual law enforcement investigator?
I'm all copped out. I'm good.
Yeah.
I did 34 years. The last 5 or so years of it was the worst probably experience as a law enforcement officer ever on the way that my career ended, because I alleged that my bosses were committing fraud. And
That was a political
thing. And so to see me have to use my own skill set against my own employers, it's pretty sad.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for me, though, because I was able to beat them. So that was nice. But, to see it in real life and to see it actually play out, my chief is not a person that should be in law enforcement. And so I went after my chief. And I'm still going after my chief.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm trying to get him decertified as a police officer, because I don't believe he has the ethics and integrity to be a peace officer. So there are certain things as a police officer through a thing called Senate Bill 2 that if you violate them, you can be decertified and no longer be a police officer. And I believe he has violated several of those 9 deadly sins of a police officer, that he should not have a badge and a gun. He should never be near this type of line of work.
How does that play out? If, like, can a citizen that thinks of officers violating these, you said it was,
Senate Bill 2?
Senate Bill 2, okay.
It's things like sustained allegations of use of force, sexual harassment, lying, Brady, being a member of a police gang, failure to intercede, like if somebody's beating up somebody, like a Rodney King sort of thing, and you don't intercede, that's a violation now. So there's like 9 of those things, and failing to cooperate with an investigation, stuff like that. And so I believe he's violated 4 of those Senate Bill 2 things. And I've sent a complaint to Post, which is the administrative agency that regulates police officer conduct. Just like the state bar regulates attorneys' licenses. I've filed complaints with the bar against certain attorneys in our county before. I've filed complaints against a sitting judge currently involved in something with the Council for Judicial Performance. And so it's up to them to administratively determine they violated the ethics or the bylaws of that organization, and then sanction them or remove them from office or take away their certification to be a police officer or be an attorney. So I do that in my spare time. But being a cop today with body cameras, Cal ECBA, which is a completely different lecture, with all the constraints, plus with the nonviolent nature of most of the fraud cases where prisons are overcrowded, nothing happens in the end. I worked in law enforcement during the heydays, and I appreciate everybody doing their job now, but I wouldn't want to be doing this line of work anymore. I'm good.
Yeah, it's getting crazy.
Yes.
And fraud is just...
It's rampant.
Out of control.
Billions and billions of dollars in fraud out there.
And it's hard to catch people.
It is, and there's very few people that are good at what you do on the defense side, because most defense attorneys aren't very well spoken or knowledgeable of the fraud schemes and how things are done, or the laws that govern fraud. Same thing applies on law enforcement. Most cops want to be narcs or SWAT or homicide.
No one likes fraud.
Nobody wants to work fraud. So when you find somebody that has the fraud bug and can do it, we're good at it, but we can't save the world.
Yeah.
And that becomes a very frustrating thing in that regard.
Especially when a lot of the crazy fraud is international now through the internet and getting money and hacking and
all that stuff. Yeah,
nuts.
And it's the Wild West out there, and there's very few people equipped to actually enforce it, investigate it, or cause any deterrent from the government from ever catching you doing those things. And typically on fraud and those types of cases, we only catch the dumb ones anyway. So
the smart ones get away with it.
They do.
I had a client as a public defender right before I left, and he fled the country, and he was filing like false deeds, and it was this whole crazy investment thing he did, and he'd file a he'd get a deed, he'd change the name, and then
Yep.
show these people, no, you're the owner of this investment property, and people got smart and finally pulled the deeds and realized they weren't.
Right.
He fled, and then your office ended up getting him.
We probably I don't know if it was on my watch or not, but yeah, if they fled the country, we usually set up red notices. So when they come back into the country.
Wait, what's a red notice?
Red notice is kind of it's been a while since I've done it, but basically it's a notice that says that when you go through a port of entry, either on a ship or plane or whatever coming into the country or a border, they run you through the system. And we have to notify the borders through the State Department or the feds, Homeland Security or whatever, to watch out for these people coming or going into the country. Because you could drive around in the United States for the next 20, 30 years and never get caught.
Oh, okay.
Unless a policeman stops you. But if you go through a port of entry and you've got a passport and it's linked to your warrant, that's how we catch people entering or leaving the country.
Got it.
And so we put up a red notice. And so, we've caught people. And it also applies in other countries. So you can put it up in a way to where, say a guy is in Austria and he goes into the neighboring country and he somehow transacts at a border.
Oh.
The system's sometimes set up to where we can sometimes know that they're going between countries sometimes.
Is that Interpol? Is Interpol?
Interpol does sort of things like that, and they coordinate a little bit with that. And red notice, I mean, it's a notice of some sort because we've caught people doing that before. That's how we catch people a lot of times when they flee the country. They're moving from country to country, and there's something that we have in the system. And I don't know if red notice is the term we use anymore, but we have a person that does the extraditions within the office, and we coordinate and we get these things put up. So if they ever try to come back into the country and they think the coast is clear, we catch them when they come back in.
Interesting.
So that's how we do it.
That works.
Yes.
I want to go into one of my favorite topics to discuss, which is prosecutorial misconduct.
Okay.
But I think we're going to have to end this one
Yes.
and do another segment. So I want to thank everybody for joining us, and make sure you listen to the next one about prosecutorial misconduct. Thanks.